to order on December 16th, the Katuitt Board of Water Commissioners meeting. And we're going to start with, see if there's any public comment. Hello, Jackie. We see you joining us. Any public comment?
I'm here.
Okay, hearing none. Jen, thanks for getting the minutes. Any comments? Have the commissioners had a chance to look at the minutes?
I could look at them right now. I have not had a chance, but I could, if we want to take 5 minutes.
Well, to be honest with you, I have not either. So maybe maybe I'll take a motion. Do we need a motion to put that to the next meeting, or
No.
Just defer it.
let's defer it? I recall under Commissioner Robinson's reign, there was quite a few deferrals, so I think I can let one slide here. No. So let's postpone that till the next meeting and move on to Chris's report, both the water quality report and the superintendent's report. Chris.
All right, sure, no problem. I just wanted to say, when you were talking about public comment, I thought I heard somebody start to say something as you
I'm
were
sorry.
talking. I just
sorry.
wanted to give them another chance in case.
Thank you.
No, I said no.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thanks.
No, it's all right. In case you didn't see my head going.
All right, I'll give you the water quality report. We had all bacteria samples were clear of coliform, total coliform and coliform. So we're doing well so far. Everything's looking okay. I'll go right to the superintendent's report here. Superintendent's report read on December 17th for
Hey, Chris,
November.
Can I just
Sure.
jump in? I remember we looked at, how often do we get sodium done? That's one thing I'd like to revisit. I know we had some issues there. When does that come up again for a more?
I actually did sodium last month when I did the complaints from Roosevelt. I did sodium at the same time, and I did some secondaries.
Okay.
So I can share those with you tomorrow, because I don't have them with me since I'm at home.
All right. Why don't you send
but-
those around? I think that would be interesting.
It might have went up like one more 0.01 or something like. It might have went from like 20 to 21 or something like that. That puts us right over that. Whatever it was 0.01 higher than it was last year when we did it.
Okay.
But I will put those on the agenda then for next month to look at and just to revisit.
I think I'm recalling that we did see a trend there, and it's something we need to keep an eye on.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if you can send those around, we'll take a look at those, Chris. Thanks.
Sure. I'll send them out to you. Both, actually. I can probably send out the secondaries at the same time if you guys want to look
Sure.
at them.
Absolutely.
Great.
Go ahead and continue. Sorry for the interruption.
That's all right. I'm just going to make a little note here. Even though Jen will help me out with this, I know. Let's see. Okay. The wrong one. We'll do the superintendent's report again. Okay. November of 2019, we pumped 7,468,000 gallons of water. In November of 2020, we have pumped 8,881,000 gallons of water for an increase of 413,000 gallons. It's kind of funny. If you looked at some of the stuff that Jen sent out, she gave us a year pumpage, basically going back to November from 2011 to 2020. And if you kind of look at it, it's even with what was going on back in 13 and 14. We seem to be averaging right out there and around 15. It seems to be on a 6-year trend. Somebody told me this, one of my ex bosses, former superintendents. He said every 6 years it seems to go spike high. He says then it starts low again. He says and it builds back up to every 6 years. Been kind of looking at that. It kind of does that, but it seems like it goes 3 years low, then it just starts going up, then it hits low again. So I'm hoping that this is our spike year that we had like back in 2016. And we're going to start having real low again next year, but
What was
I can't guarantee that.
pumpage for last year?
7,468,000.
7.7? I'm sorry.
7,468,000. I'm sorry, my mic's over here.
Okay, thanks.
Which, if we went back as far as 2018, it was actually lower than that. And then 2017 was around the same. but 2016 was higher than this month. So it's
Like a
It's kinda awkward, yeah.
98% increase.
correct. All right, underneath some general discussion here, I'll give you the normal stats. We didn't have any new services as of in November. We did actually replace 5 hydrants in November over on Papaneset Road and one on Piney Road. The town is planning on doing a repaving project through Papaneset Road. It was supposed to be done in the fall. They kind of moved it to the spring with everything that's going on. So they had let me know ahead of time. So I went out and changed the older hydrants that there were non-breakaways. So if they were ever to get hit, they could actually pop out of the water main. We do have gates on them, but to step onto one of them gates and try to turn it off when you got a flow coming out of the water, it's only a foot away from the hydrant basically. So we did put the newer breakaway type hydrants there, and we try to do it whenever we have a road that's being repaved so that we can get it done at the same time beforehand. We also had one leak over on Main Street. It was a service leak, has leaked before. The woman I talked to, she said that she's planning on replacing the service come in spring, but she didn't want to do it until springtime. We did do our PFAS sampling. I think I told you that last month that we were waiting the results.
Yep.
The station 1 still had results of around the same in the 3 different detects that averaged up to about 6 together. It was like a 2.1 on one, 2.3 and a 3.6. So it came out to about 6 average, which is below 10. The state really doesn't mind. He called me one of the better ones, he said out there when I was talking to Bill about it, Bill Schwartz at the state. But the second samples that I did had an actual slight detection at station 4 for PFAS also. The detectable or the reporting limit is 2. It came in as a 2.1. So I will more than likely have to do a repeat sample there, just our confirmatory sample. I talked to Bill today. I'm taking a class with Sean tomorrow, or discussion with DEP and the rest of the Barnstable County water superintendents. We have a class from 1 to 2 tomorrow with telling us what they expect from us and everything here on the Cape. So I did talk to Bill today also, and he's going to put together a spreadsheet and send it to me and give me some suggestions and everything. So I'll report a little more on that next month. But he said that he's a little PFAS crazy right now over there. And because we were one of the very lower ones, he said that he should have got back to me quicker on it, but he didn't. I had to call him to say, hey, you got the results back on the 20th. Let's talk. So he was still happy. He said, don't worry, there's nothing going out there. You don't have anything to worry about right now.
Is that raw water from each of those wells? Is that what that is?
Correct. Yeah, that's raw and treated, actually. I did do a complete set when I went out there.
Hey,
And
Chris,
they're both the same. Very slight increase on the treated, but he tried to show me, and it's a little confusing. There's a factor there that they might, if 3 out of the 4 samples might be one of them might be rejected. He said, if that's the case, you might have to take something. He said, it's just the handling of it and everything else when they take it. So it's hard to explain. He said, no, I'll explain it more tomorrow. So I should be able to help you give a little more explanation come next month on it. Or if they give me a copy of the presentation, maybe I'll send that around too to somebody.
Tom, did you have a follow-up?
Well, at any level is concerning,
Right.
to me, and I know it's a really low detect, and we're below their levels of concern. But these polyfluorinated organic substances, they mimic lipids in our bodies, right? And so our bodies just accumulate them in our cell membrane. So it's a concern, but it's not something that they would recommend that we treat for at this point. But it's something we need to watch, and I think maybe start to do some research on what it would require from us to start treating those two wells. should it continue to be detected there.
Okay.
Chris, I
And,
just had
and,
a clarification question. The first numbers you read, the 2.1, 2.3, and I think it was 3.6. Which well were those on? Was it also?
those are, I don't know how familiar you are with the well field. You did drive around with me once in there, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
When we go into Sampson's Mill Road and we have the 3 pumping stations,
Yep.
the one in the middle is Station 1.
Right.
So
that station 1.
That was Station 1. That was that one. Yes, it's a
then
shallower well than the others.
Yep.
It's an older well, but Station 4 is the last one down, and that
Right,
was the
by the
one that
river.
had it had the slight detect also.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Station 1's the furthest north as well, right?
Excuse me?
Station 1's the furthest north?
No.
No?
I would say Station 4 would be north on the north side of the road. The south side of the road would be Station 2 and Station 1.
All right.
So if you're going through there, it's actually a little further away from Narna Circle area down, but I would think if anything, they're the closest septic systems that we have to that area, and septic systems are a concern with PFAS. Everything's going right into the water and down back into the ground.
Well, I agree with Tom. I think we need to keep an eye on this. What is the next step in terms of testing, Chris? Now that we have some low-level detects, what's next?
Yeah, the state will check. We're actually, we're early on this. We've jumped into it quicker than the state really wants us to. Has asked us to, as you guys know. And October of 2021 is when we're supposed to start testing. So this could be a quarter of the testing now, basically, before we get there. So we could be doing this to specify that we'll probably have to test that station and maybe Station 4 first quarter for each quarter, maybe once. So it'll be something like that. We'll have to be testing at least once a quarter to them to keep an eye on it all the time and everything. But that would be up to the state, and this is what I'm going to learn a little more tomorrow.
Well, we can decide to do this on our own, even if the state doesn't.
Correct.
I don't know. I'd like to hear from the other commissioners. My own thought would be we ought to do this anyways. We've got some detects. We want to watch it. It is of concern. How do the other commissioners feel about this?
I agree.
I would say that we want to do enough to establish some baseline and trends. I don't know if we have to do more than the state is requiring at this point.
Well,
they're fairly expensive tests. They're not like testing for sodium, right?
Correct.
Are they like $1,000 a pop, Chris? I mean, I know the state has picked these up, but I think I remember that from talking to the gentleman over in Hyannis.
I believe at this point, I think the last price that I had was right around $500 or between $300 and $500 for a test to be done. We could do just a raw water or just a treated water. But just to let you guys know, any test I take, I have to CC DEP in on it. So whatever we do, whatever we get, they're going to get also, which we're not trying to hide anything. I just letting you know that also it would have to go to them also.
Well, I guess I'd like to just kind of hear what you learn tomorrow and see what they recommend we do in terms of testing going on. This wasn't a one and done for them, was it?
No. They're going to pay for the one that we had, the second test that we did also. So we got both of them done for free. And if there is a confirmatory sample that has to go out, they will send me the bottle and have that done at the same time and pay for it also.
Well, why don't we put this in the agenda for the next meeting? You will have had your meeting or consultation by then, Chris, and we should think about what we want to do here, whether we want to wait for the state to come back or whether we want to do another round on our own.
Okay.
I think we should discuss it again at the next meeting.
Yeah, and it might be something too to bring. I know there's a couple engineers that are kind of priding themselves on this and really looking into it to get the laws down and helping with some of the dictation that we have out there. So maybe I'll inquire on them some of their suggestions also.
Okay, good. And anything
Mr.
else?
Chairman,
Yes, yes, Mr. Robinson.
when we have a chance for Mr. Cambereri to speak, I know he has thoughts on PFAS as well. He's been doing a lot of work on that.
Sure. Tom, would you like to comment on this at this point?
Yeah, I there certainly is a lot to say. So I would just comment that you're working with the town on projects and the Hyannis Water, and was managing the fire training academy and its contamination of groundwater. Recently, I did a whole survey of ponds, sampling a lot of the ponds throughout Barnstable to get kind of a background, and found PFAS in every pond. Much higher concentrations in the Hyannis area, and much lower lower concentrations in the more remote areas like West Barnstable and Lawrence Mills, Katuitt. So the samples that we took, we did like 21 ponds. The samples that are being done by Alpha Analytical, I think we got for like $275 that the town paid for. And these compounds are being found, like I said, every pond that I sampled had it. There were no non-detects. And so thinking of the ponds as windows in the aquifer that are fed by the aquifer, what we're seeing in the ponds is basically what you would expect to see in the groundwater. So it's not surprising me that you're finding trace levels out there, or even in Katuitt, and in a relatively similar range of concentrations that I have found in the more remote ponds. Concentration of what you're finding is not surprising, and but I think prudent to continue watching and making sure you're keeping up with the requirements of the regulations.
Thank you. Any further comments or suggestions? Like I said, we'll put this on the agenda for the next meeting and have Chris report back to us on what else he's finding. But I would like to at least consider, Chris, if you could find out when you think the state is going to, if they're going to provide another testing round and when, that might help us decide whether we want to go private or not. Tom just mentioned he's getting tests at Alpha Analytical for $275. It strikes me that if that's the going rate, if we can get it at that rate, we may want to move ahead and get another round even on our own budget. But that's just me talking. I think we should discuss this at the next meeting. Keep this in front of us. So I'm concerned. I'm very concerned about this, as I think Tom is and others. So let's keep talking about it.
Just a quick follow up to
Yes.
Tom Cambereri's. Just based on now, since we have him here for
Free
any
consultant
emerging treatment systems that you see on the horizon or that people are starting to apply?
Yeah, Tom, that's for water supply, it's basically activated carbon filtration.
Mm-hmm.
It go to best available technology, and what I'm seeing from comparing influent and effluent concentrations in Hyannis, that it does the job. It takes out the PFAS that are being regulated. And I really, as a hydrogeologist, wondering where all the PFAS comes from. I'm more or less always sampling the water. So I'm always seeing the worst stuff. The people who help run Hyannis Suez Water are involved with the treatment plants. So that they've got the effluent from the treatments, and so I've looked at those, and that they're all non-detect. So in the aquifer, that's a different story. We don't know how to do it. We don't know how to clean up this stuff. Maybe pump and treat. You could stop the plume in that, but these compounds, they call them forever compounds, and we've got documented spills that happened in 1997 that the plume of PFAS is still being found thousands of feet, at the source, in the soil, underneath in the groundwater, and thousands of feet away in the groundwater flow. So bad stuff. Once you find it, it's a big story. The Hyannis Water District is budgeted somewhere in the vicinity of and spending $50 million for treatment and for dealing with this PFAS issue. So it's prudent to be looking for it and reacting to what you're seeing. And luckily, you're in a remote corner and without some real disastrous sites that we know. Hopefully, we don't ever find any out there.
Well, this is an important issue, but we do have a lot on the agenda tonight, so I'd like to move on. This will be a continued item, and unless we do have Tom here, so I guess I just ask if anybody has any further questions of Tom on this issue. But I think we will take this up again next month.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Chris, anything else in the superintendent's report?
Yeah, I just letting everybody know that I did receive the new vehicle, the COVID truck. I did get it. It's a Chevy Colorado.
Nice. That's what I
Yeah. And I still have to go next on the 22nd. I am getting a Rhino liner put in it, or a Line X basically. And I have a sign being made as we speak. I've already ordered that. He's making a magnetic sign, so it's not actually affixed on the vehicle. So when we have to get rid of it, we can. The Line X was supposed to be done from the manufacturer when he gave it to me. He ended up delivering it without it being done. For some reason, it never got done before he dropped it off. And I said, well, don't take it back. Take it off the price and I'll go get it done myself. So we ended up getting it for $26,984.50. They took the $650 up for the Line X. I got a price of $550 to have it done over in Bourne on the 22nd. So we're saving $100 there also. There's a little bit of equipment to put on it after that. We'll be turning the money back. The way I have heard from Ray is he took out up to $35,000. So he took the $35,000 out. He's going to have us spend what we want to spend. And he said it's not a problem to put it back into the fund. He can do it simply at the next district meeting. I believe, as Jen had some concerns there and all, that we just have to make sure that we do we remind him at the time that we want to make sure that the excess funds get put back into the fund that it came out of.
Okay, great.
Last thing on that I have here was if I sent it out. Well, actually, I didn't. Excuse me. I meant to send it out last week on that day that I sent out about 4 or 5 different things to everybody. I thought I did, but I didn't. Mark actually sent out something today about the drought status going to level 1, mild drought. I got something also today from the state. This actually I got last Monday that we were down to a mild drought. We pulled the signs, have them back. At least I told the guys to pull the signs. I know they pulled the one from out front. I think the rest of them are in. I didn't really check up on it again. So there's no more watering out there. So no more watering and everything else. But they said still, try to keep everything out there. We're still not completely into a non-drought. We still have 7 months of less water than rain and everything else. So we've gone down to a mild drought. We still have to go to a normal, but everything's still low. If you go by Levels Pond, you'll see it. It's still down about 3 to 4 feet to water from the boat ramp. And that's what I have here.
Things may start changing in about 2 hours.
Yeah, if they don't, yeah, that's a much better snow than the other day when it rained and everything came down so fast and it just went right back into the ocean and went away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, thank you for the report. Any questions on superintendent's report?
I would just like to make a comment that I found it interesting that the October pumpage over last year was 19%, and we weren't in a drought last year. We were this year, but in October we weren't, to my knowledge, watering much. There wasn't a lot of irrigation going on, so we're up 18%, 19% without irrigation, which I think is pretty consistent with what we were up in August and July, September, August, and July when we were irrigating. I'm not sure about those, but I'd like to maybe take a look at those figures, see what our pumpage was up in those months as compared to these now that we're still high. That might give us some information about whether or not irrigation is really the main cause of our excess pumping.
I was talking to Chris a little bit about this, and we're thinking the COVID effect may be playing a little role here as well. Hard to know for sure, but there's definitely a lot more people here longer into the fall than normal. But I agree with you, Tom. It's there's probably at least a couple of drivers there that are causing these issues, but I think it's still fair to say that we're pumping closer and closer to our capacity.
Yeah, no doubt.
Anybody else with questions on Chris's report? If not, we'll move on to the old business. The first item is proposed irrigation policy. And I've asked Tom Cambereri, who's with us tonight, thank you for attending, Tom, to put together a proposal to start addressing some of the questions that were raised during our, I think, very good public comment workshop. And I've talked to Tom. He's put together, I think, a good proposal, and I've asked him to attend tonight and just give us a quick summary of what he intends to do. And I think we should start moving on this while we're in the moratorium phase. But Tom, if you'd like to, I don't know if you want to go through a couple of slides or just talk without slides, up to you.
I could do either. So maybe I know I had sent you a kind of a technical memo or something before for your last meeting.
Yep.
That I couldn't attend, and so I think that shows a little bit, what's going on, what I would be doing, but maybe just verbally first, my proposal is to use the USGS 2019 model that's the the newest model that's out there. Was done for big project for Hyannis and for the sea level rise project back in 2016, but we actually updated it in 2019. It's a really complex model. It's 25 layers of that divides the aquifer up, and there's, I don't know, I think there's 5 million cells, computer cells in it, maybe I think it's about 1.8 cells are active. So it's a really complex model. And so what I'll intend to get that model up and running for this area, and that includes getting shape files. And then once the model is set, I want to work with Chris and his staff to obtain the annual statistic reports, because the model has it shows the average conditions for this entire area from Sagamore Lens to Orleans, and they did a lot of work. And I think the average daily pumping for Katuitt was 191,000 gallons per day. that seems to be kind of high in that regard, but because I think in November, it looks like you had pumped like 290,000. Anyway, what we want to do is take the model and its average conditions and look at the actual pumping conditions. And so, Chris and his staff are aware of the annual statistic reports. So we'll go back and we'll look at the monthly pumping over a period of years and compile that information. So we have that data to select appropriate pumping schemes for what we want to see in the model. So again, what the model does is, it simulates, groundwater and groundwater movement, and also the streams or stream packages in this. So I'll show, I think I showed you that. And then, basically you put in some pumping, or you could change recharge conditions, or you could do a lot of different changes of stresses to see what happens to the aquifer. And we could look at the budget of how much water is in the stream or going to the stream versus how much goes to the wells, and how that might change under different pumping conditions. And so that'll be one of the key components of what this model can do, is looking at the stream budget versus pumping at the wells. So I did put in some steps for beyond that, looking at some potential field data and what might be around. I had a brief conversation with Chris on that. There seems to be a not that much elevation data. But we'll take a look and see what is available, and see how that can be used to inform the model more. Because in general, when we look at these modeling projects, you start off with one side is a very simplistic model and a simplistic type of simulation to give you kind of screening alternatives or how-tos. And then on the other hand is that you have a very, very complex model that is informed by field conditions and everything else. Well, we do happen to have now a very complex model, and is with average conditions. So this should be very good for the purposes of your objectives. If what we find is that it's potential, what we find for the decision makers and stakeholders, they might require, well, how sure are you about this? And sometimes that can lead into the looking for more data or whatever. But for this purpose, for this project, we'll use the model as it is, the pumping data. We'll look and see what's available in the field for actual field information. And sometimes there's a lot of different types. Even the MEP has flow data for a lot of these streams. And then we'll put together some scenarios. We'll run them. We'll come back to you. And discuss it with staff, and see what your reactions are, and see if there's a need for any revisions or different questions. And then we'll just wrap it up with a technical memo and a presentation at a commission meeting.
Tom, I got one quick question, and maybe the other commissioners as well. But one of the questions that we got asked at the hearing was, okay, if we're pumping at maximum and having impacts on the stream and wetlands, how much of a reduction in pumping would we need to achieve to avoid those impacts? Is that something you think we can approximate with the model by kind of looking at various pumping scenarios? I guess the first step would be to see if in fact the model suggests that there is drawdown in the stream and wetlands, which I'm guessing it will based upon what I've seen. But then to back off and say, how could we manage it in a way to avoid those impacts? Is that something you feel we can get to with the work that you've proposed?
Well, the model will provide that, will provide that information, and it's a question of to what degree you see the changes. And so, you mentioned, maximum pumping rate. If maximum pumping rate is a lot of water, and that's why I want to look at the annual statistics reports to see, well, what are you actually pumping over
Right.
its period of time. Your wells could be rated at 1 million gallons a day, but you're maybe only pumping, on the average, a quarter of that,
Right.
because of operational issues and that, very rarely do you pump at the rated capacity for a long period of time. So anyway, we'll look, that the model will be able to say, here's for this scenario, this is the impact or its effect on the stream.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, what exactly it'll show at this point, because
Right.
I haven't looked
Right.
at it. So we'll find out.
Great. Other questions for Tom?
Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yes. Mr.
Hi,
Robinson.
Commissioner Robinson here.
Yes, Commissioner Robinson.
So to the layman, this was a request of Mr. Cambereri to help us identify a refinement of the Zone 2, which I think hasn't been done for 25 years, according to what I think Chris told us. Is that part of this package, or is that something that DEP has to do? Or so the Zone 2 is the recharge area to the well fields.
And let me just, before, if I can just sort of add something to that question, Tom, as I think you'll get to, there's a Zone 2, which is kind of a worst case pumping conditions with an assumption of no recharge. Tom's been talking about average pumping conditions. So I guess I just amend the question. Would the work provide us an updated Zone 2, which is what I think Commissioner Robinson's asking, but also a more of an actual contributing area under existing pumping rates, which might help us match potential pollution sources with water quality data. So if I can just amend the question with that, if that's okay, Tom, maybe you could respond to both.
Okay, well, the model can be run with a variety of different rates, and so you can, I'm aware what the Zone 2 requirement is when you model it. It's basically rated capacity, no recharge, and it requires a transient type of model. So I'm not intending to do that, but the fact of the matter is that this is a steady state model, and it turns out that the rated capacities under a steady state model very well approximate what an official Zone 2 model method is. So we can look at that how big the capture area will be under the Zone 2 scenario versus and what I'm doing with my hands is showing the capture area. Yeah, so the groundwater is going around, and it's usually an elliptical shape, and I think I showed a little bit of that. So the result will with particle tracking. I will do particle tracking for sure, and we'll put that in to show what the recharge areas are under the different conditions that we're pumping. And I don't know if I could share that screen with you if you want me to. Host disabled participant. Yeah, so you have to go into. Somebody has to give me the ability to
Jen can do that.
share.
I'm looking. Give me a moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so the answer to the question is no. I'm not doing an official Zone 2 because, as Chris knows, that also takes a official submittal to DEP and following all kinds of different requirements for the submittal. And actually, I did work on a zone 2 redelineation for the town, and that's how all the water districts got the zone 2s. It was a single effort that was done for the town on behalf of the water districts to get the zone 2s. And so that was done in earlier, in the 90s, and they've been basically the same. I reevaluated it in 2010, and nobody is so that just stayed as draft. And so the zone 2s really don't change too much under from that initial one, but this effort will show you will give you a good understanding of what the capture areas are.
I think you can share your screen now if you'd like to.
So now you can see that, maybe.
Yes.
Okay. So again, here's the model with Barnstable. This is a very kind of a sparse data right here. There's a whole grid here. I'll show you another one that's a lot that is another model that is available. It's a different software package that I'm evaluating right now. So there's that. Here's the simulated water table contours, and this is one of the wells, and these are the particles that I put around the wells for doing capture areas. And so this is just like the starting particles. So I haven't really pressed the button yet. I said, well, here's Little River. Well, wait a second. Is that Little River? Yeah, Little River and pond. And so there's the well there. And then here I've superimposed all the wells on this, because as I told you, there's like 25 layers in this, and the wells are in different layers. The wells the Katuitt have are in layer 7, 2 of them are in layer 9, 1 of them in layer 10. And so I just kind of superimposed them all here. And then I put particles around them, and then reverse tracked. So under these cupping conditions, these would be kind of like the average, place where it shows how the groundwater flows towards the wells. Now that doesn't just because the particles are going this way doesn't mean that it's not having an effect on drawdown over here. It's over in Little River. So this was again a preliminary run under the conditions of the model as it is, but that's kind of shows you the reverse particle tracks showing the capture area under these average conditions. So so we'll work with that, and then I'll just show you this other model that you may be interested in. Basically the same model, but so here you get a little bit more. This is the stream. Here's the Little River coming down here in these nodes, and the water table contours at 5-foot contours, 5, 10, 15, 20, and this one is probably what you'll see when I move forward with this project.
So my sense is this is going to be a little bit of an iterative process. It's been a long time, as Commissioner Robinson suggested, since there's been any modeling in this area. When I first became a commissioner, I asked Chris if I could come in and look at the reports, and I believe it goes back to the Garrity and Miller era, which is quite a while ago when this area was modeled. And I think modeling can help us answer a lot of questions, including the ones before us with the irrigation policy, the update on the zone 2, et cetera, et cetera. So my own feeling is that we want to get into this and start answering some questions. And then I think correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I think once we get the model up and running, we can really answer a lot of different questions that any of us might have regarding various pumping scenarios or even a new well, which was also one of the questions and comments we got during the workshop. So I think, we have a proposal before us. I spoke with Chris. I think we're able to move forward with this if we would like to. So looking at the clock here, I don't know that we want to spend a lot more time tonight on this. There's a lot, as Tom says, there's a lot of complexity here and a lot of details. I guess I'd ask the commissioners if there's a motion to move forward with the work, or whether or not you feel we need to discuss this further so that we can move on the
Chair,
agenda.
for the audience, I think you should give the costs of the proposal and whether it needed to be bidded against anybody else.
Chris, could you provide that? We did. Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. Chris and I did speak about that, and I'll let Chris.
I cannot tell you the exact price because I don't have it in front of me. I did not run off the report. If anybody has it on there, I think it was $6,080, something to that effect.
6,900 with an additional per hour rate as needed.
Correct. Yeah. And we do have the funds available. And my suggestion after talking with Tom, I checked with him, talked with him about the concerns I had. He eased them very easily. I think it'd be a good thing to do.
What about the bidding process?
No, we do not have to bid for engineering services.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just disclose publicly, Tom is a personal friend of mine, but he's also been a professional colleague for more than 30 years. And the reason I think Tom is a good candidate here is not because he's a friend of mine, but because he's doing a lot of work for the town of Barnstable right now with this exact model. He has it up and running, and I really believe there's a lot of cost efficiency in moving forward with the fact that he already is working in the area for the town. And so I just wanted to disclose that and be very clear about why I'm recommending that we move forward with this.
I'd make a motion that we move forward with this and contract
Second.
Tom to do that work. I think he's an outstanding hydrologist, and he's got more knowledge on Cape Cod's hydrology than probably most people on Earth, if not anyone.
All right, any motion been made and second, and any further comments or questions? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye,
All right.
Aye.
great. Tom, thank you very much, and we'll be in touch getting underway. I'll ask I'll ask Chris and Jen to execute the contract, and I'm happy to work with Chris on kicking things off with maybe a kickoff meeting. And then we'll talk about getting you on the agenda on a reasonable basis. We do have, just to put the time context on this, I believe the irrigation moratorium was 6 months. So we're into that now, a month or two. So we'd like to make some progress over this over the next 3 to 4 months. And Tom and Chris and I and Jen, maybe we can get together and talk about schedule and then get on the agenda. I don't think we'll have any results to talk about in January, but we might in February. And so we'll get back with everybody on where we're at and how we're progressing here. So Tom, thank you very much for attending tonight. And
Could you make me the host of the meeting again before you leave, please?
Thank you.
Well, how do I do that?
I think next to your name, if you go to more, you can make somebody a host. Or maybe if you go next to Katuitt Fire District and click more, you can make me the
To
host.
the fire district, like those 3 dots.
Can you see the
Oh,
participants?
make host. There it
Make
is.
host.
And Tom, thanks for
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments on the PFAS too. We may tap you on that going forward too, because it looks like that's going to stay on our agenda as well. All right, let's move on here. Time is
Thank you
moving
very
by.
much for the opportunity.
Tom,
Thank
looking
you.
forward to working with you. Thank you.
Bye.
So the next item on the agenda is the elementary school. There's a committee that's been formed and Tom has been nice enough to represent us. So Tom, maybe I'll turn it over to you for an update.
Great. Yeah, so we had a meeting, maybe it was as recent as last week. And we have co-chairs, Fran Parks and Jim Danhauser, that did a fantastic job keeping us all well organized. And Jackie Barton is also on the committee, has helped out a lot, as is Adam Zeiss. So we have a lot of names on the screen here that are familiar. We did draft a letter and sent it over to David Anthony expressing the consolidated interest of all of the commissions in the district as interested in receiving the transfer of that property. The town does want to maintain the 7 acres thereabouts of fields, and correct me if I'm wrong, Fran or Jackie, but they want to maintain that as field space, open field, recreational field for the village, as well as the tennis courts. So if the transfer goes through, we would be receiving the property that the building is on, and that part of it is probably about 5 more acres around that building immediately and out to Old Oyster Road. The district seems to be in the mind that I think is consistent with the Water Commission, that if we do anything with that property, other than tear the building down and maintain it as open space, that first and foremost, one of the things we should look at first and foremost is that it do no harm to that pumping station and the well field surrounding it. So I guess that in a nutshell, that's where we were at, and that letter did go to David Anthony and the town manager and the councilors, as well as the Asset Management Commission, all of whom David thinks would like to see this happen as well.
Tom, thanks for the update. I'll ask Commissioner Robinson for any comments or questions, and then I'll ask for both Jackie and Fran and others, Carol, in attendance. But Commissioner Robinson, do you have any thing to add or question first?
No, I just, I think it makes sense for the town to keep the fields, and frankly, they're better equipped with, mowers and everything else to take care of it. The tennis courts are in good shape. The ball field's never been really usable for any kind of baseball, but, and the soccer field's been beat up, but it's better for the town to try to keep tabs on that, I think. I think it would be good if there was a transfer to the district that not just the building, but the woods. Those are kind of special woods. They're nice white pine woods. And they're a nice feature of the property. There's trails through there that the kids have always enjoyed, whether they're kids in school or kids who just are, waiting for their parents to play tennis. There are nice trails in there. So I think it'd be nice to keep that as a part of the, the park-like setting. And certainly, the parking itself is important. We know it's used for the Kettleers. It's used for parades and things like that. So the district certainly has an interest in the parking at the site as well. As to the building, I'm not qualified to say, but I think we've talked about various scenarios and opportunities that, may make that building worth investing in.
I know, last year the district finalized a space needs study and found that we are lacking in space for several of our needs, and so that building may in time turn out to be something that could be used for that. And also the fire commission is interested in exploring, because they need some more space as well, and in exploring even possibly going as far as selling the 2 properties down on High Street and moving the fire department to that location. But again, it was pretty clear, I think, amongst all of the participants that whatever happens there, we need to be cognizant and careful with what we do so that we don't impact that well and zone contribution to it. And that was that's something the town echoed as well in David's presentation to us.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Robinson, Commissioner Happenstadt. We do have Jackie Barton and Fran and Carol here. I definitely would like to hear from any of you that have thoughts and comments on this.
Yeah, Scott, Jackie Barton here. I read through all the minutes of the Asset Management Committee, reviewed a video of their meeting, and it's pretty clear to me that the goal of the Asset Management Committee is in part to dispose of unused assets, but to generate as much revenue as possible from that disposal. There's a lot of conversation at one of the meetings about affordable housing. There's a young group of people called Social Housing now that are pushing for affordable social housing. And it was made pretty clear that Katuitt was not an appropriate place for that to occur, that Marston's Mills would be. I was glad to hear Mark say that the woods are important to keep, because nowhere in any of those minutes was there conversation of the woods. And to the point where it was unclear to me whether the 7-5 split was included the woods in any way. So as we move forward, I think it would be important for the water commissioners to identify that as an important resource to protect the water supply. There was some conversation about the septic system on the property, and Tom, you may have more information than I do about it, and what, if any, issues there were there. But it's it's closer to the well. It's not at the other end where the gymnasium is. It's kind of out back and closer. And then the other thing that was of interest to me was the fact that the land was actually given to some of the land was actually given to the town by a local family specifically for school purposes. So the request was made by me to clarify the legal issues around it. The other thing is that I actually made a proposal, if we really want to move forward in bringing this forward in May, that we suggest that the Katuitt Fire District acquire the land and allocate a sum of $800,000 or $1 million, which is the cost of demolition of that building. And I felt some pushback from that, some serious pushback from it. And I recognize that it's important because it's part of the history of Katuitt. And some of the people still on this earth went to school there. Were in the first class, Fran and Ronnie Mycock among them. And so I think that we really need to make sure that we work closely with everyone to be certain that it doesn't become a big political hot potato. It shouldn't be, it doesn't need to be. But my proposal for pushing forward and asking for the $800 to $1 million was simply to get the ball rolling. And if people really don't want to see the building demolished, then there are other steps that we need to take to define and design the building that ultimately is going to cost more than the $800,000 to demolish it. So I think that's pretty much my thoughts on it. I did ask, but have not yet heard back from Jim Benoit for a map showing the parcels and everything. And so as soon as I get that, I'll share it with the water commissioners and with the committee, the school committee. I think that's pretty much it.
Jackie, thank you. Carol or Fran, do you have?
Go ahead, Carol.
I'm just listening tonight. I have no comment. Thank you.
Fran?
So, Jackie, you weren't able to get into the cloud because those documents are what the chief sent.
Okay.
Tom, did you get that? Did you get an email from the, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So you have those documents that show where the septic system is. My main concern is the long-term financial impact to the district of taking over this building. I have no problem with acquiring the land. I think that's the number one thing we need to do to protect the well field. But the operation and the management of this building is going to cost a great deal of money. So I want to make sure that we have as close as possible to accurate figures that will tell people, how this is going to affect them. If we, when it was a fully operational school, the heating cost was $40,000 a year. So, it's not cheap, and we need, obviously you can change the heat to gas, which would be less, but that's just one of the costs of taking over the school. So I really think it's important for the committee to look at the financial impact that this will have, not just concentrate on the uses.
Fran, thank you. And obviously economics has to be a big part of this. Now, Tom, Commissioner Hoppenstadt did mention that the fire department might be interested in moving some services down there. So I suspect there's some economic offsets associated with that. I had also reported that I had a prior conversation with the Katuitt Kettleers organization, who expressed to me that they were interested and willing and able to pay some rent to provide a pretty low impact use. Commissioner Hoppenstadt, do you have you had any further, you hear anything further or other thoughts on either the Kettleers or the fire department and other tenants that might provide some revenue to address some of Fran's concerns here?
Yeah, I have not. So, but we're in the early stages of the discussions, and I think both Jackie and Fran can verify that the district as a whole is very interested in the transfer of the property.
Yep.
And maintaining the property as open space in perpetuity to protect our watersheds. And then if the district can utilize some of that property for other uses financially, then they will explore those options. And that would, include certainly the Kettleers and the fire department. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of their bailiwick. I was just
Right.
there as like, all right, let's just make sure we protect the water. And I didn't really have to say much because everybody recognized the importance of that property for that well and that pump station.
All right, thank you, Tom. And Jen, I'd ask you if you could carefully capture, we've had some, I think, important comments tonight, including the forested white pine area, the hiking trails, some of the economics. We're already on record pretty clearly that our bottom line is no, water quality improvement at a minimum.
Well,
I think that's
we
being
can make a
respected.
motion to that too.
Yeah.
In effect.
So I think I want to make sure we capture all of these thoughts, and it might be appropriate for us. I'm not sure what the next step in the process is, but and Tom, I appreciate you representing us at these committee meetings. But I guess I'd ask you, is there any action you think we need to take tonight on, yeah, okay. Is there a motion?
I do. I think we should take some action just in support of the transfer of that property to the district to ensure the protection of the watershed immediately adjacent to one of our major well fields and pumping stations.
Okay, is there a second?
And I don't think that precludes at all what the district may want to do in the future. I don't want to do that, so we need to be careful with that. But we do need a clear. In the past we've been on record as in support of exploring it. We haven't actually said let's
let's do it.
Support the transfer of it. Let's
Right.
support
Okay.
the acquisition of this.
So that's your motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, on discussion, I did prepare a couple of quick images I would like to go over just to kind of get it into the record as part of this. And Jen, if you could help me, I won't take more than 3 to 5 minutes, but I did do some thinking on this. I'm very interested in this project as well, and thinking about what we could do from sort of a water quality perspective. I just wanted to share a couple thoughts. These are not recommendations at this point. They're really just some free thinking on what we might be able to do since our primary mission is water quality. And if Jen, if you could get the first image up there, I'll just take a 3 to 5 minutes.
This one?
Don't see anything yet.
Not that one.
It does say I'm sharing my screen.
There it is.
So just as a reminder, there's the parcel outlined within the zone 2 area. The well is not identified here, but I think if, I know, Jen, if you can use your cursor, if you know where it is, the well sort of is down.
Right here.
I think one of them, does one of them have the well on it? Not
This
this
one
one.
doesn't, but that's okay. This is the
Okay.
zone 2. So obviously you can see that most of the parcel is in there. You can go to the next image. There's only 3, I think I included.
Don't have them in a particular order. I
That's
don't
okay.
think.
That's okay.
This
Doesn't
one?
matter. Yep, whatever.
Okay.
I'm still seeing the same one.
And if you
Yep.
look southeast of the West Street access road there, you'll see the small wetland is shown there. And I think that's the pump house
Yeah.
just
Right.
to the northeast of it.
So
Jen,
I'm
I'm-
showing the photo of the drainage, but,
Can people, I can't see that. Can anybody else see it?
and now this is the road leading in by the tennis courts.
Yeah, well, they haven't showed up.
No, we're still seeing the same image. Well, I can just do it verbally, unless there's a way to show it.
I'm
I
trying.
don't want to take
Closed.
too much
Have
time
you
here.
closed that one window with the first image on it? To close the one with the there you go.
Screen sharing has stopped. Okay, hang on. Try this one.
Okay, so this is one of the ideas that I had was to do some demonstration projects on the site, and this is in the driveway heading in from Main Street, and the tennis courts there on the left. And fortunately, I'm always looking to see water drainage, and I realize it's really nice when ice forms. You can see it. That's the low spot. And there's another slide. I don't know if you can get to it, Jenna, closer up, but right now there's a little drainage pipe that leads from the low spot there off to the left along that kind of swale. So one thought would be to put a little stormwater simple rain garden in here as a demonstration thing with some sort of signage. There's a project that's under construction at the library, Stewart Library. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but the signage is not up. But I'm thinking, since there's such a big public participation here with parking and the use of the parking, ought to be a great place to demonstrate sort of a little stormwater treatment system. And I'm also thinking that could possibly be used to develop a little bit of a so-called permeable reactive barrier to pump and treat some groundwater, which this is before it gets to the well, because this is a high density area along this Main Street area. And I also, there you go. That's perfect. Thank you, Jen.
All right. Whew.
All right. So these are some of the ideas that I had. I think Fran or somebody mentioned the septic system. So one idea would be to upgrade that to a so-called innovative and alternative, or INA technology. There's a couple of them out there that are really catching a lot of attention and getting like an 80 to 90% removal of nitrogen. So I thought, we ought to put our good foot forward and do that on this site for whatever use it might have in the future. And then I've got a few locations where we might be able to pump. I've got a well located in the middle here, install irrigation well to capture highest density septics right there. If you look in the upgrading area right along Main Street, there's a lot of 1/2 acre, 1 acre lots with septic systems that would be a good capture area. And then it struck me that there's a number of parks, such as the athletic fields on the property that we've been talking about. Also the the Kettleers Field, Lowell Park, and then the cemetery is not far away, and they do irrigate that. So I thought maybe we could use that source of water with excess nitrogen in it to so-called fertigate those fields. So I'm not going to, that's it. I'm just going to stop right there and just say that there are probably some things that we could do on site to enhance, not only protect and not allow like a big housing development to come in here, but also do some things that might be demonstration projects to enhance water quality. And I'm happy to work with you, Tom, and others in trying to develop some of those ideas. As I said, this is really just a quick thought. We have a motion on the table and I don't want to delay it. But if anybody has any questions on kind of some preliminary thoughts I'm having here, I'm happy to address them, or we can move on with the motion.
Actually,
quick-
yeah, go ahead. It doesn't really, you can go ahead, Mark.
just a point that I've walked out there in many rainstorms over 25 years, and the water actually flows all the way from the parking lot to the side of the school down to that one little pipe under the sidewalk, Scott.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and in very, very heavy rains, that swale is 4 feet deep with water.
Mm.
I
Yep.
mean, the whole parking lot drains to that one spot. It's crazy.
Yeah, I thought that would be a really good demonstration location. I kind of saw that, and I had a close-up slide that we couldn't get to tonight, but that's okay. I'm happy, like I said, to put a little time in on this to at least come up with a conceptual design. If we decide to move forward with this, we would ultimately need an engineering plan. But I do think, given the popularity of the site and the parking for the Kettleers game, it would be really nice to have something right there to just let people know what we're doing.
Just a quick note.
Yes, Chris.
On the, you did say there on the cemetery and the ball field, I will let you know they both have private wells.
Okay.
The ball field does their outfield with a private well, and the cemetery has their own 8-inch artesian well actually out there that they pump for nothing for irrigation. That's
Right.
that's what they use for irrigation out there.
Okay. We may want to just
and-
limit it to the fields on the site then.
Yep. And the one that you saw, that puddle's been there forever. 'Cause when I was going to school there, when the bus went through, we all used to sing "We All Live in a Yellow Submarine" when we went through it.
Okay.
On
Good to
the
know.
bus.
Well,
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
Well, maybe we can fix that at the same time of designing the rain garden.
Yeah.
So, anyways, again, just preliminary thoughts. Tom?
I would just, I love your thoughts, and I'm, as well from past discussions, that anything we can do proactively to treat or to remediate any sources of pollution is much better than a treatment plan, right? And so I think those are awesome ideas.
Thank you.
I do want to point out, though, that the properties where you had identified there, other than the ball field and the cemetery, which are also the town of Barnstables, I guess, and I'm not sure about the ball field, but those would be retained by the town. Those would not be transferred to the.
Yes.
Not to say we couldn't work with the town on projects like that, and it would improve the property and it would protect the watershed, and I think that's what we ultimately want to do.
Yep. Okay, well, we do have a motion that's been seconded. Are there any other comments or questions on the motion? And I'd ask us to put it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
I had a comment.
Too quick here. I'm sorry, I missed you.
That's okay.
Brandon.
Member of the peanut gallery. I don't think that there is any urgent need to make this motion, about supporting purchasing the property. The letter that we sent to the asset management and the town manager and the other people was basically that we're very interested in the property, but it was also fairly non-committal about actually taking the property over. I don't, what we were basically requesting was, more time to look at our options. So I'm not so sure that, motion right now to, go ahead and purchase the property is the best idea.
Well, if I understand the motion correctly, we're not in the situation, we're not in a position to make the decision to purchase the property. We're simply, as the water department, suggesting that we think this should happen. and then other organizations such as the Prudential Committee and the town as well will ultimately weigh in and make that decision, if I get that correct. Is that your understanding, Commissioner Huppenstall?
Yes, I just want to solidify our commitment that we're not only interested in maintaining that property as is, as a tool to help protect our watershed, but also we feel that we could do a good job doing
Okay,
that
thank you.
with the property.
Any other questions or comments on the motion?
We'll
Okay.
vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Tom, did you vote?
Yes, I.
So it's unanimous. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, well, the last item we have on the agenda, and Tom, thank you so much for your work on this. This is a great community project. I know from talking to people, there's a lot of interest in this, and I think it's great that the water commissioners are playing a significant role in this. It's incredibly appropriate. So thank you for your time and commitment to this. And we'll look forward to keeping this on the agenda and moving this forward. The last item we have an old business to revisit water rates. I put this on a couple weeks last month. I don't think we have a lot to talk about tonight, although I think Chris has a quick update on this. If I get that right, Chris, not to put you on the spot unless I get that wrong.
For the
The
water rates, I was just, Jen had the water rates that she was talking about with I guess it's the decrease of time to pay. She was interested on we're having a lot of bill run over with the 60-day to pay a bill. If we could knock it down, Jen said between 30 and 45, I think it was, Jen.
Correct. I actually have a couple of follow-up things from our last meeting on the water rates where we had talked about maybe a proposed irrigation meter. I talked with, I had two conversations, one with the gentleman that does our water billing software. And he believes it is possible on our software to kind of have a radio button that you would click that on to say this is an irrigation meter and have it look at one set of price tiers versus, domestic drinking water looks at another set of price tiers. So he believes with some programming it would be possible. And then I also had a conversation with Kim at Barnstable Water because they currently support 2 meters, but theirs is obviously their second meter is for sewer, not for irrigation. So they as well track water coming and going.
Okay, now that's interesting. That's interesting because I know Boston Water and Sewer does not do that. They only track water use and then they assume a sewer cost. And I know that because I have a couple of clients in the city who are paying sewer rates and don't believe they're generating that much sewage. So that's interesting.
You guys had asked me to talk to Tater and Howard on this, and I talked to a couple people there. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I didn't realize that's what you were referring to here. They are in the middle right now of doing a report for Marion on this, the same thing with the septic, where they put in a septic meter and they deduct it from the actual water usage for a lower rate.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that they said, we have never heard of anybody doing it to increase water rates. We've only heard of them to do it to decrease sewer rates, basically.
Yep.
So I talked to 2 different people. I talked to Ryan over there and to a gentleman by the name of John Gregory, who's worked for us this also. And he's going to CC me in on a lot of the stuff with Marion and the report that he's doing there and get more stuff as it comes up to me on it. His report and everything that he had with them. His only thing, like he said, Ryan's was under the impression, he said, well, with your tiered rate, you're actually doing that now. And I think we talked a little bit about this, Scott, where with the tiered rate that we have now, most of the people that are going into the higher tiers are because of sprinkler systems. So in a way, you're already doing that. But as you had stated, what if there's only one person living in the house or 2 older people living in the house? It might be different. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I would like to keep this again on our agenda. I had suggested this at the last meeting, and I specifically suggested that we reconsider commercial food production facilities in the village that might be treated differently than irrigation use. It's something I'd like to keep looking at. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it tonight, but and I think it might have some bearing on ultimately where we go with the irrigation policy and regulations as well. And certainly one incentive is or disincentive is to use fees to discourage irrigation use. But so we may want to come back to that. But I think that's all. Unless people have questions or comments, that's really all I wanted to cover tonight. Just kind of get a quick update. It sounds like physically it is possible to add a second meter. We wouldn't be the only ones doing that, and through a billing program, that's possible. I'm not sure that's the best solution, but that was one of the questions and suggestions that came up in past discussions. So Jen, thank you for your research on that, and you as well, Chris. So we'll keep this on the agenda going forward. Jen?
Sorry,
Yep.
Scott.
That's all right.
So back to the point that Chris made. So we're going to be reading meters the first week of January, but we'll be starting January 1st. And, you know, after reading meters, importing them, QCing them, printing the invoices, getting them off to the printer and mailed, I'm hoping that they'll go out somewhere around the 18th or 20th of January with a 60-day due date. That would make them due mid to late March, and the minimum use bill is supposed to go out in March. So here's where I'm talking about that overlap happening with a 60-day due date. So if it's something you're willing to consider, if we could have a conversation about that sooner rather than later, that would be helpful as we approach the January billing.
Okay,
What would
sure.
be the downside of reducing it from 60 to 45 other than less time to procrastinate?
Or even 30. Is there?
And knowing also that this will be the bigger bill because this has all of the summer usage. It's hitting right after the holidays. So I'm sure there will be a bit of, you know, hardship for some of the residents that have to come up with a chunk, but it's a reality.
I'm not sure the extra 15 days is going to solve their issues, right?
Right.
What about push the other option? The other side of the coin is pushing the minimum use bill out.
Yep, we can. I think last year they went out the 30th of March just because of this issue. There are some programming things in the software that dictate what month they need to be printed in order for them to calculate properly and so on. But if we push that out, then we're bumping into the next 60-day period where we read meters in July and bill for that usage. So if they're due at the end of March, I mean, if they're issued at the end of March, end of April, end of May, they would be due, and then you're a month away from billing again. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there.
Well, I guess then I'd go back to Mark's suggestion. I mean, what other utility gives you 60 days to pay your bills?
Right, and now with the online bill pay, they have additional options to pay, including paying by credit.
Is there a motion here to make?
I make a motion to reduce the billing date to 45 days from date of issuance.
Is there a second?
I'll
I'm
second
sorry.
that. Yeah.
Seconded. Is there any comments or discussion on the motion? It's been seconded.
Jen, do you think that's enough? Giving you another 15 days, another 2 weeks?
Yeah, I do.
Any other comments or questions? I'll call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so we're on to new business. Is there any new business?
I do have one thing.
Okay, Jen?
Chris, do you want to go?
No, I was pointing at you, actually. I was going, Jen does. You have your letter there, yeah.
I do have a letter that I received very recently from a resident with question who is asking for a hardship consideration for their water bill. It's a $1,700 water bill that was assessed to them in July. So it was the previous excess use billing period. When we increased the rates, we did talk about, maybe at some point we would consider, make some hardship considerations. I don't have any guidelines for that. And my response to the resident was, we can bring it before the board and see what they say. So
Jen, could
open for
I
your
ask
discussion.
you, we talked about this briefly. Does part of this include filling a swimming pool as part of the cost?
So they did, she did admit that they purchased an above ground pool at Walmart and filled it in May. I don't know how many gallons that equates to or what the corresponding dollar amount would be, but they are a new homeowner at that property, so I have nothing to compare it back to for prior usage.
Comments, questions from the
Yeah,
commissioners?
I mean, we've talked about hardship, but I think it needs to be pegged to some other standard. So for instance, we brainstormed what would be the qualification for a hardship. And to me, it's somebody who is receiving that kind of leeway from other town programs. So, you know, if they qualified for the school voucher, school lunch voucher system, or, you know, the town tax collector is providing some kind of a hardship exemption or a senior citizen discount or something like that. I think that those are objective standards. I don't think it's really for us to come up with case-by-case hardships. It would just be too variable for me. And I think we'd be on very shaky ground trying to come up with our own standards of what is a hardship. You know, there's a reason why we put liens on houses, because they don't have to be paid immediately. They have to be paid at the point of sale. And that's when there's money on the table to discharge all sorts of liens. So hopefully this family can right the ship and pay this off over time. I think this department has been very generous in setting up payment schedules for people who want to work with us. But, you know, where it's not a leak, and I don't see the need for leeway in this situation.
Commissioner Hoppenstadt, do you have any comments or questions?
I just agree with what Mark said. When we talked about hardship, we said that any special dispensation would be tied to something in addition to their request from us. It would be tied to some other special provision they're getting from the town. And they would have to show us that in order to receive a hardship.
Thank you. Any public comments on this?
Do you have a written policy?
No, I mean, we wanted to see what would happen in the first year of the raise in the rates. We didn't get that many complaints, so we didn't set any hardship policy, but we did discuss this informally, as Tom and I have mentioned.
I think it would be good to have a formal policy on paper, just for to cover yourselves for any future legal actions.
I think a hardship request is totally discretionary. I'm not sure that it's a legal thing. I mean, if there's a bill, that needs to be paid. We have a process that includes issuing liens. So
So you can
that's
just, write that down. But I think, if somebody comes in with a hardship and they want to know what your policy is, you can hand them a piece of paper that said, this is,
Yeah.
our policy.
That's a good point.
And if you do have a hardship, these are the other criteria that you would need, to support, the town programs that you're involved in, et cetera.
Could I ask if one of the other commissioners would be willing to look into this and draft a brief hardship policy and delay our action on this until the next meeting and take that into consideration, because I do think precedent is important here. So whatever decision we make, I think Fran makes a good point that we should have some policy on this because there would likely be other requests in the future. Whoever Tom or Mark mentioned tying this to other town hardship policies seems to me make a lot of sense. And that might be a relatively easy way to kind of clarify this.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. It was my idea originally, and I'm happy to pursue it, Scott.
Thank you. All right, well, why don't we put this on the agenda for the next meeting, Jen? And we'll have 2 items. One would be the policy and the other would be dealing with this particular hardship request.
Thank you. And then like, as an example with our leak adjustment policy, we have a calculation formula in there as well. So if we do determine that they meet the criteria for and receive some other accommodations from the town, how would we calculate that discount rate for them?
Thank you. Is there any other new business?
No.
Hearing none. Let's talk about,
Oh.
go ahead. Sorry, I'm moving too quickly
I
again.
guess it's old business, and maybe I just missed something earlier when Chris was giving his report. What's the status with the Roosevelt issue with the presidential house?
I spoke, I have not heard from the attorney again. I gave her our concerns and said if there was any personal testing being done over there, that we'd like to be able to get in there and take tests at the same time and have, we've given them copies of our tests, that we'd like copies of theirs at the same time. And she said, I don't see there being a problem with that. The only thing that she did mention is that the woman who the Roosevelt property is not doing well physically again.
Okay.
So she's having a flare up again. The other thing is just, Fran is on here. She had talked before about Mosswood Cemetery doing, I guess they call it a natural burial. Yes, green burials. And I did go over there and meet with the director over there. He showed me the area, and it is out of our zone 2, where they're talking about for the future area. So I was just kind of to help Fran out there while you were there. I saw you over there. I was going to ask you to hold on for a second, but I just figured I did it then.
Yeah, great.
And I have one more heads up for the January meeting. We'll be starting to look at, we'll have to have a draft of the budget for the February meeting. So I would just ask that we add to the January agenda discussions about planning for fiscal year 22.
All right, Jen, thank you. Any other, either new business or public comments again? All right, then let's pick our next meeting date. And Jen, I would remind you, we did not act on the minutes tonight, so please send out a reminder to all 3 of us to read those minutes and make sure we stay up to date for the next meeting.
Sure.
But how about a meeting date proposed?
That would be January, 3rd Wednesday would be January 20th.
That's fine.
I'm still checking.
So those 2 weeks, the week of the 19th, because it's MLK Day on the 18th, and then the following week, I've got, I'm going to be virtually hosting science fairs for close to 100 kids and hopefully close to 40 judges. So I should be able to make it.
The 20th is okay,
Yeah, I
Tom?
should
Maybe?
be.
You want to back up to the 13th?
No, because that's when I'll be front end loading and trying to get all the ends tied up. So let's keep it on the 20th.
Okay.
And it's a 5:45 thing, right? So I'll definitely want to be out of that building by then and ready to Zoom again after.
And are we going to stay with the Zoom format at this point? I believe we should.
I think so, yeah. I think we
Yeah.
should plan on that.
Yeah, we have to.
There'll be a post-Christmas surge.
Commissioner Robinson, is that date okay with you? January 20th?
Yes.
All right, let's go with that. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
To adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Good night, everybody. Stay safe and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you,
to you
Chris.
guys.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jen.
Talk to you
Much
later.
to
Thank you
and
very much.
Todd for
Thank
the
you.
talk, Jen.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.